In fact, it is 7 slides, and none of them contain more than 7 sentences, I can promise you, so that would make it the perfect presentation to give to Prime Minister Modi, as we've learned this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, it is a great pleasure to be here for me today, and in preparation of this conference, I have had a little look into what the weather is like in the world, and although here in Lima it might look a bit foggy today, there is a positive outlook for the world, and the sun is increasingly shining everywhere. In recent years, solar PV has been the leading renewable energy technology in terms of added capacity, cost efficiency, and investment. And therefore, it is very good to be here at this high-ranking conference and speak to you about the success story that is renewable energies and solar PV in particular. I would like to use the opportunity to share some thoughts with you on the current situation of the renewable energy sector worldwide, and in order to do so, I will address 5 dimensions. First of all, it is the expansion of renewable energy capacities. Secondly, decreasing costs. Thirdly, the opportunities for investment and innovation. And finally, we will have a look on 2 very topical issues, that is the discourse on just transition and the aspect of geopolitics and international cooperation. But let us begin with the fundamentals first, and this is the expansion of renewable energies. While especially the solar segment reflects a positive development, it also describes the overall situation in the energy sector. Coal, oil, and gas are stepping back, while the sun, wind, geothermal, and water have taken the lead. The global energy transition, or as we call it in Germany, the global Energiewende, is truly in full swing. For the first time since 2012, yearly additions of renewable power generation capacity overtook net installations of fossil fuels and nuclear power combined. In 2018, around 180 gigawatts were added worldwide, and solar PV accounted for half of the additions. Wind power contributed about 1/3, and hydropower made up 1/10 of new installations. Worldwide renewable energy capacity totals nearly 2.4 terawatts, and this is as much as 3,000 nuclear power plants. Renewable energies account for 1/4 of global electricity production, and meanwhile, the share of power generated from conventional sources is on the decline. The leader on this is, and we have to say this, truly China. And the country has significantly expanded their capacities in the past years, and other countries confirm that. With courage and ambition, a lot is possible. Costa Rica, for example, to just pick one example from the region, completely ran on renewable energies for almost the whole past year. And while we see that the success story of the energy transition is continuing on a global scale, we have observed a slowdown during recent years. And therefore, it is very important not to rest on our laurels, but to continue powering the development in the right direction. Clearly, a lot has been achieved in the electricity sector in the past years, and in the next step, we have to look at other sectors. We have to look at mobility, we have to look at heating and cooling to continue this transformation. The technical framework conditions are there. We have already a very favorable framework for that, and now ambitious policy action is required to further drive the change. Policy, above all, needs to create a level playing field for renewable energies on the market. And this is only consequent when we look at economic realities. The oil prices leave us in constant uncertainty about the future. Costs for renewable energies have only moved in one direction, meanwhile, and this is downwards. And this makes renewable energy a reliable constant for consumers, producers, and investors. Here again, solar technology is leading the way. Between 2010 and 2019, the average cost of solar PV has fallen by 85%, with new records being broken each month. However, solar energy is not the only backbone of the renewable sector. The price of wind energy has halved since 2010. And the International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA, we all know them, estimates that by 2020, the average cost of electricity generated by solar and wind sources will equal to the lower end of fossil fuel costs, and you can see this very well on this chart. We can say that already today, virtually all renewable energy technologies are competitive with fossil fuels, even without subsidies. The increasing switch from feed-in to auctioning systems supports renewable energy competitiveness. But we also have to see that many countries are still subsidizing the incumbents, the fossil fuels. While subsidies for renewable energies are regularly indicated on electricity bills, for example, those for fossil fuels often remain non-transparent. Neither are subsidies for nuclear energy, and they are neither a feasible solution. Worldwide, states subsidized fossil fuels with more than $300 billion in 2017, and that is more than double the public support for renewable energy. So it is evident that there is no fair level playing field for renewable energies yet. Courageous policy measures are necessary, and I can say that current discussions are leading in the right way, but still a lot of work needs to be done. Ladies and gentlemen, the energy transition is not only a huge task for politics. And I'm really glad to say that the business and financial sectors have started and are beginning to see the sign of the times. Renewable energies offer promising business opportunities. In total, worldwide annual investment in renewable energy capacity is close to $300 billion. While the number has fallen during past years, it still more than doubles the investment into new fossil fuel capacity. Notably, developing and emerging economies have overtaken developed economies and countries in investments in renewables. And therefore, the global energy transition does not only contribute to our climate goals as stipulated in the Paris Agreement, but also to a growing and more equitable global economy. Already today, big investors have become aware that who invests in sustainable assets will increasingly gain a competitive advantage. At the 2018 COP, the United Nations Climate Change Conference, for example, a group of more than 400 investors representing combined turnover of more than $30 trillion emphasized their full support of the Paris Agreement and called on governments for climate action. According to the Divest Invest movement, global commitments for pull-out from fossil investments rose to about $11 trillion since 2011. When I was a schoolboy 20 years ago, I was taught that the world needs to fear to run out of oil. Today, we have to fear that oil and gas will run out of business opportunities. Let me give you some recent examples. Just 2 days ago, Saudi Arabia has announced parts of Saudi Aramco going public in a few weeks. The company is still the biggest oil producer in the world and the essential centerpiece of the country's economy. From now on, it will not only pump oil and gas from the ground, but it will also has the challenge and the task to create new business opportunities for the Saudi economy. A second example, last week, the company Chesapeake Energy of the United States warned that there's a significant risk of the company failing. The company has been among those who led the so-called shale gas revolution in the United States. And within just a few years after that happened, their business model has become outdated. I could continue this list for hours with examples from failed companies to failed tenders for drilling rights and so on. And it is clear that even among the giants of the energy industry, of the fossil industry, it has become evident that a diversification away from fossil fuels is urgently needed to retain economic power. Still, fossil fuel stakeholders need to speed up as investors increasingly turn away from fossil fuel assets, and those who act too late will face the risk of substantial writing off and stranding of assets while the world shifts to green investment. Investment needs to shift towards renewable energy, and this is particularly important when it comes to innovation. In fact, the energy transition has the potential to initiate a truly virtuous cycle. The energy transition triggers the development of new products and services, which in turn accelerate the transformation process through which increased efficiency and lower cost will be achieved. Not only are huge business opportunities created by renewable energies, but it also encourages engineering and ingenuity. It is able to include regions currently affected by structural change, and in this way, renewable energies offer prosperity, social development, and inclusiveness. Inclusiveness, that is indeed a keyword that we have to look at in more detail. Undoubtedly, the renewable energies are a job booster. Global employment in the renewable energy sector is still growing and has totaled 11 million jobs in 2018. Here again, the solar sector is in the lead in providing jobs for more than 3.6 million people worldwide. Nevertheless, we also need to consider the needs of those employed by the fossil sector and the complex value chains based thereon, such as in the automotive sector. Fossil-based industries still permeate deep into many countries' economies and constitute the single most important economic factor in some regions. They determine employment and welfare for large parts of the population. But the energy transition is urgent, not least for the employees, and don't be fooled. The alleged conflict between workers' rights and sustainability and climate protection does not exist. The Secretary General of the International Trade Union Confederation, Ms. Burrow, just put it in a very nice quote, saying that there are no jobs on a dead planet. So workers' rights and climate protection go hand in hand. What we need are just transition policies that acknowledge all dimensions of sustainability, social, ecologic, and economic justice. Only a managed structural transition will prevent the widening of the global inequality gap. Workers in fossil industries require employment alternatives and retraining. Moreover, the energy transition must be accompanied by public participation and democratic decision-making. If we do not account for these demands, there is a risk of unrest, and populists will increasingly exploit the topic to drive a wedge into societies. But the matter of the fact is, their framing is wrong. The energy transition is not a challenge for justice. The opposite is true. Only an energy transition can help us achieve true justice between social groups, but also between generations and between the global north and south. A socially responsible transition will increase justice, participation, and public acceptance, and will thus facilitate the expansion of the renewable energy sector. Therefore, ensuring a just transition through a comprehensive policy framework, taking account for all different fields of policy, is a key task for international, national, and local politics. Let me address another important aspect of the global energy transition, and this is its very global nature. The energy transition is not something that one country alone can do or can do on its own. International relations are of fundamental importance when it comes to this low-carbon transition in the world. In particular, we must keep in mind the geopolitical implications of the transformation. The global energy transformation will induce considerable shifts in the global balance of power. It will change alliances and coalitions. Fossil resources have created dependencies, and they made countries vulnerable to the roller coaster of energy prices and power politics. Renewable energy, on the contrary, leads to higher security of supply and makes countries more independent from imports. Germany, my country, for example, saves roughly 16 billion euros. That's probably about 45 billion Peruvian sols, annually by avoiding imports through increased renewable energy capacity and energy efficiency measures. Fossil fuel exporters are also able to benefit from the energy transformation, provided that they diversify their economy, and I have outlined that before. When we look at how international relations are being done, we can say that renewable energies really have created a new form of international energy policy. And I have to say it is a better one. While in the past, international energy policy has largely been about who sells how much oil or gas to whom, nowadays it is about cooperation. It's about jointly creating good solutions for the world. And forums like ARENA or, in fact, the International Solar Alliance show there is a real global hunger for intensified international dialogue, the sharing of best practices, and close coordination. And it shows that there's immense momentum in the global ambition to decarbonize our economies and make them future-proof. Now you may ask, okay, this young man here at the front, he is quite optimistic about the whole thing just a few days after the biggest economy of the world formally started their withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement. But I have to say, I'm only realistic. It is, in fact, only the United States that are leaving or that are about to leave the Paris Climate Agreement, while others continue to join, and this includes big fossil fuel giants such as Russia. I am truly convinced that sooner or later all these backward-looking forces will acknowledge that the global energy transition is not only necessary, but it's also a sensible and beneficial thing for all countries. This makes renewable energy a constant in the world and something that we all should support and that we all should cherish on and work together. And I think I've mentioned that before, international cooperation is a necessity to create this global transformation, this global energy transition, this global Energiewende, as we call it. We're here to join forces for that. I think this conference here this week is a prime example of this form of international cooperation that we need. We're on a good way, but we should not rest on what we have already achieved. Quite the opposite. We are just starting this transformation, and we need to look into new ways, into new forms of cooperation. This includes regional cooperation. I think OLADE is a very good example for this. In Europe, the European Union is looking into how to foster the sustainable energy supply on a regional scale. We've just been informed that the new European Commission, headed by Ursula von der Leyen, will put a large emphasis on this fact and wants to make Europe the first climate-neutral continent by 2050. So there is a real momentum there, and there is a lot of chances if we find the right and the creative policy solutions. And for that, I wish us all very fruitful discussions in these days. And yeah, enjoy your time here, and let's work together for the global energy transition. Thank you very much.